Hello, welcome to our Facebook Live. We're going to look at maintaining good self-esteem today. I wonder what the word self-esteem means to you. Many people see it as how much we like ourselves. For example, how good I feel about me. Today we've got some hints and tips to help keep and develop a strong, healthy self-esteem in times of the pandemic, which we hope will encourage you and uplift you. Life of Hope is a weekly live video on Wednesdays at 4 of well-being tips and advice, and Colin and I do this together as a response to COVID-19. Colin, would you like to introduce yourself and say something about our topic this week?
Yes, hi everyone. I've been counselling in Leighton Buzzard for over 10 years now and seen a lot of people, and a lot of them struggle with self-esteem and self-worth. And we thought self-esteem would be a very good topic to talk about this week and introduce at least because it's something that's affecting us all during lockdown. We're all feeling not so good about ourselves, aren't we? I mean, do you feel that how we relate to others also has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself? If you're feeling good about yourself, you relate well to others. If you're not feeling so good, you don't relate so well to others. And it's possible, isn't it, to swing between feelings of being inferior to feelings of being sort of superior, almost. But both can be driven by a sense of poor self-worth, of low sort of feelings about ourselves. And I will talk a bit more about how to get a balance and not be so dependent on others for approval and improving ourselves in a short while. But back over to Rachel.
Yeah, there's different aspects to our self-esteem, including physical, emotional, and relational, amongst others. I'm going to talk about these, and in a few minutes, Colin's going to say something about the spiritual, and he's going to show some slides that we've produced. So if any parts of our self-esteem are negative, then it can cause us problems. Sometimes people think of self-esteem as confidence. Sometimes our self-esteem is damaged by what other people can say or do and things that happened when we are young. Maybe we could look at the next one, please, Colin. You can see the different aspects of self-esteem there: physical, emotional, and relational. So I'm going to talk about physical first of all. So we'll look at the next one, please, Colin. Our bodies are pretty amazing, and it can help us feel good and have a healthy self-esteem by focusing what's good about our bodies instead of things we don't like. So whenever you can, avoid dwelling on the times when your body, or my body for me, doesn't function so well. Simple changes like having a brisk walk once a day, as we know, can make a big difference. And focusing on the pleasure and contentment that we feel we get when we've achieved it. It's a blessing to be able to eat even. You could focus on that, even if you're not able to walk every day. And it's great to be able to focus on eating and eating nutritious food. They're two examples of the way our bodies function. Even the ability to think is brilliant when I think about it, if you'll forgive that play on words. We'll go to the next slide, please. Feelings can be problematical, especially if we start feeling I'm not good enough. Negative self-talk can further damage our wobbly self-confidence. A way to feel better is to focus on one or more things you've done well that day, from simple things like looking after myself by staying hydrated or eating regular meals or resting. Or, for example, more complex things like carrying on with a piece of work or finishing a complex piece of work. Focusing on the qualities we have which helped us do those tasks, like persistence or thoughtfulness or listening to my body, being reliable, or anything that we feel we've used to accomplish these things, can help us. So now we're going to turn to relationships or relational self-esteem. Now, relationships can be tricky if you've got problems in this area. One way of helping yourself feel better about relationships I found particularly works for me is by doing things for other people rather than focusing what they haven't done for me. You know, thinking, oh, she didn't do that, or he said this or that. I found that very counterproductive. But if we focus on doing things for others, it can help shift this. For example, smiling and greeting somebody when out walking, buying a small gift for someone at home or a neighbour, or any thoughtful act of kindness. And this can bring a whole different new perspective to the way we feel. Particularly if we've got some difficult relationships. And I think there's very few people that would feel that they hadn't got any tricky relationships. Most of us have probably got one or two tricky relationships. So we can then remind ourselves, if we're feeling a bit wobbly about relationships, of the times when we showed an act of kindness, and also of people's positive responses to us back. Something simple like remembering the way someone smiled, or the kind words they said, or just their considerateness can make a big difference to how we feel. And I'm going to ask Colin if you would like to give your thoughts on any other aspects of self-esteem from a spiritual perspective now, please.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, the term, I don't know if you know this, but the term self-esteem became popular in the 1960s with the rise of psychology. Sort of came out of the West Coast of America. And now it's a household name out, and our culture sees the importance, doesn't it, of thinking highly of oneself. And we all, don't we, long to be built up. We all long to be admired and to be made to feel worthy. But it can be a problem if we're relying on others to build us up, or if we're putting a face on to others that we're okay when we're not okay. That can be a real problem. And social media can be another issue, can't it, for our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves. When we go on social media, we can see others looking that they're having a great time, maybe not in lockdown, but normal times. And they can be looking attractive, and we can think we're missing out or that we're inferior. Or we may feel we need to prove out to others that we're better in some way, that we look good, and we're trying to for others to look at us. We're trying to build ourselves up in some way. And we can look to our friends to build us up on social media. Some people, don't they, post how things like how terrible their day's been, so their friends will say good things to them. They think, and they make them feel a bit better, and until tomorrow will be better. I don't know if you've done that at all. You know, the trouble in depending on others' approval is that other people's approval is very fickle. It's changing, and we often can never do enough to feel better about ourselves, never get enough approval. You know, there is an alternative. We do not have to look at ourselves through the eyes of others. We can, and how the world sees us. We can look at ourselves through how God sees us, through the lens that He looks at us in. And the Bible can be very helpful to us in this way, as it holds many generations of people's experiences of knowing God. And the Bible helps us to know how we can relate to God and feel good about ourselves because of God's love and approval. You know, God's love, I don't know if you know this, God's love is not fickle and changing. It never changes. And He loves us in spite of our failings and our faults. I mean, just imagine this. Just imagine that if you could truly 100% feel unconditionally loved by someone, by God, only God can do that, then you would get to feel lovable. Imagine that if you could feel unconditionally accepted by God, then you would feel acceptable. Imagine if you could feel unconditionally embraced by God, then you would feel that you're lovable and that others would want to embrace you. And imagine that if you could feel unconditionally forgiven, there's no guilt, and forgiven by God, then you could be someone who could forgive others and you'd feel forgiven too. You know, in society today, the norm is to boast about strength. I meet people all the time that I've got to be strong, I've got to be strong. Not about weakness. And we're in such a competitive world, dog-eat-dog world. Yet compare that with the Bible, which is full of examples of men and women who thought they were nobodies, who thought they were weak. And in this day and age, we might be tempted to say they suffered from low self-esteem. But in contrast, they were healthy and full of God esteem, healthy God esteem, and are able to achieve so much. in the Bible, there's this statement. Just find this on the internet of the scroll for you here. There we are. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. What a wonderful, wonderful saying. Think how different you would feel if you could take that on and really believe it. Rachel.
Okay, Colin's now going to play a brief video on self-esteem.
4 tips to help when your self-esteem is low. Tip 1. Physical health. Look after yourself. Get exercise. Eat well. Tip 2. Emotions. Sometimes feelings can be our enemy. When we feel we're not good enough, try and think positive thoughts about yourself instead. Tip 3. Relationships. Try to focus on the other person and not yourself. You may find this makes a real change. Tip 4. Spirituality. We are more than just material beings. Knowing God can make a difference to how we feel about ourselves and our self-esteem. Get in touch. Rachel and Colin would love to hear from you. Finally, just want to say that we've only been skimming the surface, obviously, with this whole area of self-esteem and feeling better about ourselves. But we do plan to come back to this topic again soon because it's so important. But please do contact us if you'd like any advice in this area. We're doing another live broadcast next Wednesday at 4, as Rachel already mentioned. And the other thing I want to mention, if you're somebody who's wondering what life's all about and your self-esteem is low, you're feeling disappointed, looking for meaning, why not try something called the Alpha course? I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a really, really great discussion group thing. It's only lasts for an hour a week. For 10 weeks, and it's designed for those who do not go to church or consider themselves religious. It's based around watching this video, a 20-minute video, and giving thoughts on it. It's friendly, and your opinions are really valued. And the feedback we had for the last one we ran in November was very positive. People were encouraged, or inspired, especially during these times of lockdown. So please contact me. The next one starts on Thursday the 21st at 7:30 this month, Thursday, 21st of January. And there's no cost and there's no catch. We just want to encourage people and help them to explore the meaning of life. And there'll be some info coming up at the end as we finish this video today. Rachel, over to you to pray. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just finish with a short prayer. Heavenly Father, we just ask you to help us not just to rely on other people for our self-esteem, not even just to rely on ourselves, but to look to you, the all-seeing God, because it's only then that we'll be truly fulfilled. We pray you'll just bless us and help us to reach out with acts of kindness to other people. Amen.
Amen.